Judge Daniel Carver massaged his temples, the steady throb behind his eyes a familiar rhythm after a long day wielding the gavel. He'd spent hours in the courtroom, sentencing a cunning con artist, untangling a heated dispute between a landlord and tenant, and guiding a group of puzzled jurors through the finer points of their civic duty. Every ruling he made was a brick in the foundation of a fair society, laid with care and precision. Now, as he drove through the city in his glossy, midnight blue sedan, a modest indulgence after years of public service, the skyline blurred into streaks of amber and silver under the night sky. The sudden flash of red and blue in his rearview mirror jolted him from his thoughts. He glanced at the speedometer, 35 miles per hour, right on the legal limit. With a practiced flick of his wrist, he signaled, eased the car onto the shoulder, and shifted into park. The engine hummed softly as he lowered the window, expecting a routine exchange. A young officer approached, her silhouette sharp against the patrol car's headlights. She was slight, her jaw set with a tense, almost confrontational edge. "License and registration, please," she said, her tone clipped and commanding. Judge Carver reached into the glove box, retrieving the documents with the deliberate calm of a man accustomed to authority. He handed them over, his movement steady, unhurried. The officer, her name tag read Officer Kendall, took them, but her eyes didn't drop to the papers. Instead, they locked onto his face, narrowing slightly. "This your car, sir?" she asked, her voice tinged with doubt. "Yes, officer, it is," Judge Carver replied evenly. "Registered and insured in my name. It's all there in the paperwork." She didn't glance at it. "It's a pretty fancy car," she said, her gaze flicking over him, from his neatly pressed suit, creased from the day's work, to the gray strands threading through his dark hair. The unspoken for someone like you lingered in the air, heavy and pointed. A faint unease stirred in Judge Carver's chest. He'd faced this before, the quiet assumptions, the sidelong looks that questioned his place, his achievements, based on nothing more than a preconceived notion. "Officer," he said, keeping his tone level, "my license and registration are valid. If you just take a look, I'm sure we can clear this up." She let out a short, dismissive huff. "Right. You expect me to believe you own this." She waved a hand at the sedan as if it were some garish trophy, not a vehicle earned through decades of diligence. "People like you don't drive cars like this." The weariness Judge Carver had carried from the courthouse began to shift, teetering on the edge of frustration. He was exhausted, yes, but more than that, he was disheartened. He'd dedicated his life to the law, to the principle that justice was blind. Yet here he stood, judged not by evidence, but by bias. "Officer," he said, his voice firming, "I am Judge Daniel Carver. My identification and registration are in your hands. I ask that you do your job and verify them." Her lips twitched into a smirk. "Judge, huh? Sure, and I'm the governor." She tapped the radio on her shoulder. "Dispatch, requesting backup. Possible imposter claiming to be a judge. Suspected stolen vehicle involved." Judge Carver stared at her, incredulous. Imposter? Stolen vehicle? He was a cornerstone of this community, a respected figure in the legal system. The absurdity of it stung. Within minutes, the night pulsed with more flashing lights as a second patrol car screeched to a stop behind Officer Kendall's. A taller officer, Officer Bennett, according to his badge, stepped out, his expression mirroring Kendall's suspicion. "What's the situation, Kendall?" Bennett asked, leaning toward the driver's window. "Possible stolen vehicle," she replied, her voice smug. "Driver says he's a judge, but..." She rolled her eyes, letting the implication hang. Bennett peered inside, his stare cold and appraising. Just as Judge Carver opened his mouth to explain, a third vehicle pulled up, a sleek, unmarked sedan. Sergeant Laura Hayes emerged, her presence steady and commanding. She scanned the scene, her sharp eyes settling first on Judge Carver, then on the two officers. "What's happening here?" Sergeant Hayes asked, her voice calm but resonant. Officer Kendall straightened, puffing out her chest. "Got a driver claiming to be a judge. Says this car's his, but I suspect he's an imposter. Possible stolen vehicle." I called for backup to handle it. Sergeant Hayes listened, her gaze occasionally drifting to Judge Carver, who sat with his hands resting lightly on the wheel, his face a blend of fatigue and restrained indignation. When Kendall finished her exaggerated account, Hayes turned to the judge. "Sir, may I see your identification, please?" The courtesy in her tone stood in stark contrast to Kendall's accusations. Judge Carver nodded, retrieving his judicial ID from his wallet and handing it over alongside the registration. Hayes examined both, her eyes flicking between the photo and his face. Recognition dawned, followed by a flicker of respect. She turned to Kendall, holding up the documents. "Officer Kendall, have you reviewed these?" Kendall shifted uncomfortably. "Well, no, Sergeant, not yet." "But, not yet." Hayes's voice rose slightly, cutting her off. "Procedure requires you to verify identification and registration before jumping to conclusions, especially conclusions based on—" She paused, her words deliberate, unfounded assumptions. Hayes extended a hand to Judge Carver. "Judge Carver, I apologize sincerely for this inconvenience. Officer Kendall made a serious misstep, and I assure you it'll be addressed. Please accept my regrets for this unprofessional stop." Judge Carver shook her hand, his grip solid. "Sergeant Hayes, I appreciate your professionalism, but this isn't just an inconvenience. Officer Kendall didn't merely err. She let prejudice override the evidence right in front of her. My ID and registration have been in her possession since she approached me, and she refused to even glance at them." Hayes's expression darkened as she nodded. She turned to Kendall. "Officer, check Judge Carver's documents. Verify his identity and the registration." Now, reluctantly, Kendall unfolded the papers, her eyes finally skimming the text. The color drained from her face as the truth hit. The name on the ID matched the registration, tied to an address in one of the city's most esteemed neighborhoods. It was undeniable. "Sergeant, No excuses," Hayes snapped, her tone icy. "You let your biases override procedure, common sense, and respect. You turned a simple stop into a fiasco based on nothing but your own assumptions." She faced Judge Carver again. "Judge, I'll handle this with Officer Kendall personally. Please, allow me to ensure you're back on your way." Judge Carver watched as Hayes led a subdued Kendall aside. He caught snippets of their exchange, Kendall's defensive gestures, Hayes's unwavering stance. The irony wasn't lost on him. He, a guardian of justice, had been presumed guilty until proven innocent, and even then, the doubt had lingered. When Hayes returned, she offered another apology. "Judge Carver, please head home. We'll take care of this. Again, I'm deeply sorry." With a tired sigh, he shifted the car into drive and merged back onto the road. The city lights, once warm, now felt stark and distant. He thought of the cases he'd ruled on that day, laws designed to shield everyone, regardless of who they were. He thought of Officer Kendall, clinging to her prejudice despite the facts staring her down. Hayes would discipline her, no doubt, but would it shift her worldview? Judge Carver wasn't sure, and that uncertainty, he realized, was the heaviest judgment of the night.